One Steve, I'm the other Steve. So my name's the other Steve. I'm going to be your guide on this great Masson chamber tour and 350 million years of history. However, before we go down there and do the interesting bit, I've got the important bit to do up here, okay, which is to let you know what we're doing. We're going to go through the hole in the wall down there. We're going to walk about a quarter of a mile through some old mining tunnels. We're going to get together in the great chamber, have a bit of a chit chat. Then you're going to climb 130 feet to come out on the top of the hill, a quarter of a mile away up there. These are the things you need to know. It's a cavern system. It's dark in places, it's wet in places, it's muddy in places. It is a cool 6 degrees down there. Now there are 3 things you need to know before you follow me down. First of all, we've got steep, sloping, slippery, uneven floors. So wherever you see a handrail, put your hand on the handrail. That way if you slip or slide, you grab the handrail and it will stop you going base over apex and getting a wet bum. We've got roof spaces which come down to 5 foot. So if you're as far from the ground as I am, you're going to be ducking quite a lot. However, everybody has to watch their heads, okay? Little ones, watch your head on the sides because they stick out in lumpy, bumpy shapes. But most of all, watch your head on the stairs. The stairs are really deceptive. Don't let them catch you out. Now, talking of the stairs, there are 175 of them. But before you start to panic, 16 of them go downwards, okay? So there's only 159 upward stairs. They're not all in one go. There's a section of 42, a section of 37, and then a final section of 80 just to finish you off completely. Okay, so for this reason, I'm going to suggest if you've got a serious cardio issue, a serious breathing issue, a serious mobility issue, or if you're a diabetic who hasn't had their lunch yet, this is not the tour for you. In which case, for a small fee, my friend Caleb will let you out through the chain. You can go up the slope into the pointy building, and in there you will find a cinema. And in the cinema, you can watch a cinematographic tour of the cavern. You can sit up there in the warm and the dry, drinking a cup of coffee, imagining everybody else schlepping up 159 stairs. Okay, everybody happy? Yeah. Nod your heads and say yes, the other Steve.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Steve.
Now what we're going to do now is we're going to go down a drift shaft, which is a shallow sloping shaft into a hillside. It was put in for you tourists. Miners didn't use drift shafts. They would come down vertically from above. It is a bit of a slippery slope, so I want you to keep at least one of your hands on the handrails as you follow me down, okay? Down we go.
Here we go. Good luck to us.
It's going to be 6 degrees though. Yeah, these are the safe steps.
How long it will be? They said this how long it will be though?
Oh, I can feel the cold from the...
Oh, you've got a nice thick coat.
James.
Oh no.
It's really cold.
I go first. I go first or what?
Hand on the rail, girls.
Okay, to the rail. Oh, I love that. Wow, this is our first time here in the koi.
Whatever you do, zip your coat up, zip it up, and so your phone's
Mommy?
Oh, it's very steep. It's very steep.
Nakapit kayo sa
These
rin.
are the wrong shoes.
It's nice. It's a good adventure one.
Hold on to tilt your hand.
Wait.
Handrails are getting cold.
Guys, I can see myself, but you know, I'm doing the corner. Oh wow! Guys, I can see myself, but you know,
Light up for me.
I'm doing the corner. Oh, wow.
Welcome to Walker's Grove. Now it's called Walker's Grove because the Walker family mined here from 1600 to the 1790s. And a grove is a Saxon word for a mine. Now the Walker family didn't come down the drift shaft, as I say, that was put into you tourists. Miners would drive a shaft downwards. And what I want you to understand is that all of the space that you're standing in, all of the space that I'm standing in, and all of the space that we're going to be walking through was one solid mass of this sparkly, glittery crystal. Now what the miners would do is they would mine their way down from the surface, break through the top of these chambers when they found them, and then simply mine the lead sulfide out. And they would do that by taking a pickaxe, smashing the lead sulfide to smithereens, and then shoveling the bits into a kibble, into a bucket. And the kibble would be sent to the surface for the women to process. The miners would mine down about 3 feet and then work their way outwards towards the rock face. When they reached the rock face, they stopped. They didn't mine the rock. There was no value to it. What they would do is to take a chisel and a hammer and chisel all of the lead sulfide off of the rock, leaving the natural rock behind. And that has left us with this. This is natural rock. This is what real rock looks like before the weather gets at it, with all these strange lumps and bumps, cavities, deep dark chambers where the bats now live, and big sticky outbits. Now, a sticky outbit is a geological term for a piece of rock that sticks out. Now the miners came in, our Walker family, from way up here in the roof space and worked their way down and down and down, generation after generation. Lead mining was done predominantly from the top downwards. They were after the lead sulfide for the lead that's in it. Lead is a metal, but it's more than just an ordinary metal. Lead is an amazing metal. You see, for a start, it's impervious to the weather. It doesn't matter how hot or cold it gets. It doesn't matter how wet or dry it gets. Lead doesn't expand. It doesn't contract. It doesn't crack. It doesn't rust. But here is the amazing thing about lead. Lead is a metal that you can work when it's cold, which means you can take a lump of lead this big and you can pound it out until it's as thin as paper. You can fold it and twist it and bend it. You can cut it and join it and weld it. And when you've finished monkeying around with it, you can scrumple it up, melt it down, and get exactly the same lump back. It is 100% recyclable. Lead is such an amazing material, we've been using it for thousands upon thousands of years. We still use lots of lead today. There's lead in your kettle lead at home, that's what makes it nice and flexible. There's lead in your trainers, your walking boots and your wellies. There's lead in your mobile phone. There's lead in your glasses. There's lead in your game station controller. There's lead in your games box, your computer, your telly. There's lead in the windows in your house. There's lead in the PVC in the windows in your house. There's lead in the car. It's all over the place. You can go back 1,000 years and people were using lead. They had lead roofs and gutters and downpipes. They would take a lump of lead this big and press it into a plate shape and then dip that in tin to make pewterware that they would eat their food off of. They would take small pieces of coloured glass and glue them together with strips of lead to make those beautiful stained glass windows that you get in abbeys and mosques and gurdwaras. But you can go back further than that, 2,000 years. The Romans were using lead. Lead in their underfloor heating systems, lead on their roofs and their gutters. They even used lead in their weapons. But you can go back further than that, much further. You can go back 4,500 years and the early Egyptians were using lead. They used lead in the makeup that they wore on their faces. They used lead on the nets that they threw into the Nile to go fishing. But most remarkable of all, 4,500 years ago, the early Egyptians were using lead in a battery. Yeah. It was made of ceramic pot. It was about this big. had an anode of lead on one side and an anode of copper on the other. And what the Egyptians would do is they would hang a nugget of gold from the lead and a piece of iron jewellery from the copper. And then they would pour in lemon juice. Now, if you remember your physics, two dissimilar metals in an acidic solution create an electric current. And as the electric current switched between the two anodes, it dissolved the piece of gold off of the lead and laid the atoms of gold onto the iron. 4,500 years ago, the early Egyptians were using electricity to gold plate their jewellery. They didn't even know what electricity was. Spare a moment. What do you suppose the world would look like today if the Egyptians had known what was in that little ceramic pot? I think we would live in a very, very different world. So that's why our lead miners were here then, the Walker families, the Walkers, the Fernies, the Tinkers, and all the different families that mined in these hills, working their way down and down. And all of these chambers look pretty similar in the sense that they're made out of this natural rock, and the hill is riddled with them, like a Swiss cheese. But the question is, how did the hill and the lead get here in the first place? Well, to know that, we have to go back 350 million years. 350 million years ago, where you are standing right now, used to be the bottom of the sea. And had you been standing right there 350 million years ago, you would be surrounded by crinoids, wibbly wobbly, half fish, half plant type creatures, and brachiopods, small shellfish wibbling around on the bottom, and giant coral, and nothing else. There were no fish in the sea, there were no sharks in the sea, there were no dolphins and no great whales. Now when the crinoids and the brachiopods died, their bodies just lay on the bottom. And because there was nothing in the sea to eat them, over thousands of years they built up in great layers. And with billions of tons of water pushing down them for millions and millions of years, they were all squashed together to form this. This is limestone. Limestone is a sedimentary rock made out of billions of dead bodies. Now the layers of limestone lay on the bottom of this shallow sea for millions and millions of years. And then, deep inside the earth, the volcanoes started to rumble and grumble, and the pressure built up. And it pushed the layers of limestone up and up and up to form the hill that you're now standing inside. And as it did so, great cracks were torn into the side of the hill. Huge fissures were ripped through the middle of the hill, and giant, dark, empty chambers were rended from the fabric of the rock. But they didn't remain empty for long, because we know they became full of lead sulfide. Now, how they became full of lead sulfide, we'll find out in the Great Chamber, where our story will continue 300 million years ago. Right, and ladies and gentlemen, we're about to go into a pipe vein. Now, a pipe vein is a horizontal deposit of minerals, in this case, that sparkly, glittery, silver grey lead sulfide. This is your point of no return, okay? So if it's a bit dark, a bit cold, a bit boring, whatever, you can now turn round, go back up the slope and return to the surface. Once you come round the corner with me into the pipe vein, you can't later on decide you want to turn round and come back. My friend Caleb is coming in with his tour, and there isn't room for people to pass side by side in the tunnels, okay? Okay, so into the pipe vein, mind your head, little ones, mind your head on the side.
And coppers. Oh, there's a water here. Oh my God. Ay, be, may tubig dyan.
Go, go, go.
Oh my God, look at my... Oh dear.
Slippery, slippery.
Nadali ako ng tubig. Oh my God, so... My shoes are destroyed. Oh, may tubig na naman. Ay, watch out the water, ha?
There's water. There's water.
Ang ganda.
There's water.
Where?
No, dripping. Water's dripping.
Ang ganda. Super ganda, guys. First time mag-cave. Oy, naku. Tunay. Sulit. Ganda, guys. Punta kayo dito sa Height of Abraham. Super ganda. First time kong pumunta sa cave. Kaya ko na pumunta sa Palawan. Pero hingal, malayo nilalakad. Tapos ang baba ng, minsan mababa sa tao yung dadaanan mo. Pero okay din. Yan. Wow.
These big empty spaces torn through it, around about 350, 320 million years ago. So now we're going to find out how the lead sulfide got in here. And we're going to look at the geological history of the Earth from 300 million years to the present day. Now to do that, I'm going to put on an audio-visual display. One.
Millions of years have passed, but our story has much more to tell. We are now in the late Carboniferous period, 300 million years ago. Limestone has already been formed, the warm seas have retreated. River deltas with tropical swamps are filled with forests of gigantic horsetails and tree ferns. In the air, enormous insects fly around. Over time, the forests die, and the rotting vegetation compresses and solidifies to eventually become coal. But we must move on. It is now 200 million years ago, and the land that will become Britain has drifted nearer to the equator, part of an ancient supercontinent called Pangaea. Catastrophic eruptions shake and distort the world, and deadly fumes fill the air. Global temperatures rise, and the oceans are still. Planet Earth becomes a very inhospitable place, and primitive land and marine animals die in a mass extinction called the Great Die. Acid rain percolates the ground, dissolving the limestone, forming huge caves and passages. Deep underground, mineral-rich fluids crystallize in joints and cracks. Some will become valuable lead ore. But the caverns remain undiscovered. Their secret is hidden. Time passes, and tectonic plates slowly alter the Earth's surface, forming new continents. Fish, dinosaurs, and numerous plant species start to inhabit these lands. And life slowly evolves over the next 180 million years. Then, one devastating day, a massive asteroid impacts planet Earth and triggers violent volcanic eruptions. Ash and dust block out the sun, causing the ecosystem to collapse. And the dinosaurs, along with some animals and plants, die out. As the land we call Britain drifts northwards, the climate gradually cools, and glaciers form, hundreds of meters thick in places. Storms, snow, and ice repeatedly come and go. It will be thousands of years before the temperatures begin to rise, and icy meltwaters scour the rocks, filling the caverns with sand and silt. As the glaciers melt, the landscape and coastline of Britain slowly emerges, and early humans arrive. But the hidden caverns still keep their secret. Hundreds of years go by, and people discover how to use metal. Lead becomes a valuable resource, and during the Roman conquest is mined extensively in Derbyshire. Our story is nearly over. Lead mining is established as an industry. Local miners dig deeper and deeper, removing all the glacial sand and silt to reveal more of the valuable ore and minerals. It is their hard labour that opens up the cavern that you see today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Masson's Great Chamber. It is called the Great Chamber because it is 75 feet wide, it's 96 feet high, it's 169 feet long, and just to give you an idea of where you are now 130 feet below the surface of the Earth. You are so deep down here, nobody up there can hear you scream. Now what I want to do is to give you an idea what it was like for the miners. The miners would work in teams of 3 or 4. But even so, there's not a lot of light down here when they were taking the lead out. But lead wasn't the only thing that water brought with it. It also brought this. This is calcite. You will have seen calcite. It's what glitters on the white lines on the road at night. You'll have eaten calcite if you've brushed the teeth this morning. But here is the cool thing about calcite. On a cloudy, miserable, grey, foggy, overcast day, hold a nice piece up to the sky, and you can find where the sun is through the fog and the rain and the cloud. It works like magic. It's the way the Vikings navigated in the 3rd and 4th centuries, which is why this stuff is also known as the Viking sunstone. So here's my invitation, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wander round. I'm going to ask you not to go past the chain. You're welcome to wander around and take some photos. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have while you're wandering around, and I'll give you a call in a minute or two.
Oh my gosh, those are water dripping. Oh shit.
$300 years ago. But what I want you to have a look at is a couple of things, the first of which is this. This is called a miner's plaque. When miners opened a new seam of lead sulfide, they would carve their initials onto the wall. So if anybody came in from a different direction, they would know that it was already being worked. Now it gives us a lot of information if we know how to read it. The square represents this chamber, this big dark hole. And inside the square are the initials of the miners and the date. 1705 was the date they broke through the roof of the chamber and found the lead sulfide. Now up here we've got Isaiah and Mordecai Fernie, the Fernie brothers. And then on the top right we've got little Tommy Wood, and down the bottom we've got Bernard Young. Outside the square we've got EW and TW. These are the Whitworth brothers. Ezra and Thomas Whitworth, after whom the local hospital is named. Now the lead industry was known as the bar, and these two were bar masters. They were in charge of the lead industry on this hillside. They were appointed by the king, and their job was an important one. The system worked like this. The lead sulfide down here did not belong to the miners. It belonged to the Earl of Rutland, who owned the land. He would bring the miners in as independent companies to drive shafts down, find the sparkly, glittery silver lead sulfide crystal, take it out, grind it, mill it, burn it, and smelt it into lead bricks called pigs. And it was the pigs of lead that the miners sold back to the Earl of Rutland. It wasn't their lead, they couldn't sell it to anybody else. Now the Earl of Rutland would decide, before the miners started working downwards, how much he would pay for each pig of lead. And he would come to an agreement with the miners known as a gain, where the miners gained and the Earl gained. The lead industry was known as the bar. So what they had between them was called a bargain, which is where we get the word bargain from, a deal between two people. Now, the barmaster's job was to make sure that the miners obeyed all the rules and regulations underground, to make sure that women obeyed all the rules and regulations above ground. They would check each one of those pigs to make sure it was exactly the right weight and was 99% pure lead. Then they would stamp a crown into the top to show that it had been crown inspected, and then stamp the miner's family number in and record it into a ledger, and each mining family would get paid for the pigs that they produced. So they were important. They weren't only important, they were powerful too. For instance, when our Mr. Tinker was working down there, the Earl decided that he didn't want to pay him threepence 3 farthings a pig. He was only going to pay him twopence a pig. Well, Mr. Tinker went to see Ezra, the barmaster, and the barmaster went to see the Earl. Knocked on the Earl's door, stepped in, and said to the Earl, "You, sir, have a bargain with Mr. Tinker for threepence 3 farthings a pig, and threepence 3 farthings a pig you are going to pay." And the Earl sat there and nodded his head. These chaps were appointed by the king. Nobody, not even a duke or an earl, could argue with a barmaster. They were that powerful. Now, if you look behind you, up at the roof space, here you can see a hole in the roof. These are called sumps. It's an air shaft. Miners would drive sumps between chambers to try to get the air to circulate in the days before pumped air. And as you can see, there's water dripping from the sump. And if you follow the water, down it comes into what miners used to call snot rock. It looks like a big slimy bogey, but if you stroke it, you'll find it's not slimy at all. It's actually highly polished, where the water runs across the surface all the time. Now, right at the beginning in Walker's Grove, I was explaining how the rock was made from dead sea creatures. If you look up here, this light golden brown colour is fossilised coral. And if you follow my lamp, there you can see the fossilised brachiopods, those shellfish I was telling you about.
Wow.
It's difficult to understand. You are 864 feet above sea level, but here you are looking at the underside of the seabed from 350 million years ago. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, there's an introduction to the Masson Hill, how the hill was formed and how the lead got in here. We're going to leave via this set of stairs here. I'm going to caution you to mind your head. My name's the other Steve, and I hope you have a very pleasant remainder of your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Let me check. This is lime.
It's not slimy,
That's not
it's just
limey.
polished.
Yeah, very sweet. No, it's this solid turba.
Looks slimy. Right,
yeah, well, because of the right chambers, you can see it more time than others.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a swamp.
Here we go. We're going out now, guys. That's a good trip. Very nice.
Eight.